slides.
Tell me just.
Okay.
Tell me when.
1935, the Lions win the NFL championship. The Detroit Tigers take the World Series. The Red Wings bring home Lord Stanley's Cup. Joe Louis begins his rise to world domination. This transforms the Motor City into Detroit, City of Champions.
Oh, crack of the bat, and we are back to our old ways.
We're going to need a starter's gun for this one.
Or an email ding, one of the two.
Yeah.
A starter's pistol.
Yeah.
It is Detroit City of Champions, the podcast. I'm Jamie Flanagan.
Charles Avison.
That dude wrote a trilogy of books, a screenplay, several haikus.
Yeah. Some poems and some
about
some dreams and all this.
1935 and the amazing athletic sports year in Detroit in 35.
Greatest season in the history of American sport. We've put out many.
We've talked about so much.
Yeah, I don't know any other show in existence that we're on episode 85. I've got it written down as 85. Is that where we're at?
84.
You're missing an episode.
I don't know.
I'm telling you, we're at 85.
Okay.
Well, in either case, 84, 85 episodes. We got to go back and do some math on it. But what other season ever? I mean, I can't think of one that you would be able to talk about a season for 84 or 85 episodes.
Yeah, no.
And we're still going strong with like many, many more. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Who put that meme up there?
Chris made
Did
that
he really?
the other day, yeah.
That's awesome. Nice job, Chris.
We were talking, and but so we've been talking about the big dogs, right? So there's the three majors, which sparked your interest in the whole City of Champions project, and as you did that, you unearthed 30 others. So there's 33 so far.
Yeah, once you start diving into the story, there's always more. There's always more.
The Lions, the Tigers, the Red Wings,
Joe Louis,
the big three.
Yeah.
Joe Louis, it just and not counted in the number of the 33.
Yeah, Joe didn't win his championship in 1935.
So we've
already laid the case down for what, despite the fact that he didn't win his
Still
championship.
The most amazing year.
Well, we laid the case out, the entire, my entire chapter in the book in the second book, and the entire whatever it was, like 15 episodes we did on Joe Louis. The entire goal was to lay down the case why Joe Louis's season of 1935, despite him not winning the championship in 1935. Despite that, it was the greatest individual season in American sport history,
without a doubt. You got to go back and check out those episodes. But we've done that, and then we were talking about the Lions and their origin and how they morphed from the Portsmouth Spartans, and we talked a lot about that. And but there's so many, like we said, there's 30 other champions.
Yeah, there's so much other stuff.
We've done two, which credited a lot of time. Garwood. And Walter Hagen, but that still leaves another 29, 28. 28.
Yeah, and so
we're going to talk about, and because I'm just fascinated by all the stories, because the
stories are incredible, man.
You give me the elevator pitch on these, and I'm like, oh my god, we got to talk about that guy. Oh my god, we got to talk about that guy. And then today, like we mentioned, you kind of alluded to a starter's pistol. So we're hitting the track. It's a little track and field.
Yeah.
And I saw some of the images you sent me. Spoiler alert: Cass Tech High School and the University of Michigan.
Yeah.
Go Blue.
Yeah, go Blue. We're talking Eddie Tolan today.
Eddie Tolan.
Tolan. And so Eddie Tolan is is Michigan of a guy. This guy is a Detroit and Michigander as much as you can possibly get.
And again,
this guy was a representative of Detroit and Michigan par excellence.
And this name is new to me.
Yeah, well, so Eddie Tolan, he's every once in a while. It's interesting because once you hear the name Eddie Tolan, all of a sudden you'll start hearing it more,
right?
Because I'd never heard of anything like this. When I first started this project, I was a senior at Western. The pitch, I had never, I'd like Detroit sports and Detroit history. But I'd never known this story existed or anything. Yeah. And I'd certainly never heard of Eddie Tolan. Right. And it was like, it wasn't even really until I got into writing the first book that I'd even heard of Eddie Tolan. But that's what's interesting is that as soon as you hear the name Eddie Tolan, once you hear it and once you hear his story, it's all of a sudden you're going to hear his name pop out of the woodwork in places you just did not expect. And that's at least that's how it was for me.
Okay.
It's just out of nowhere. You'll see somewhere that's like an Eddie Tolan park.
Oh,
you'll hear something that's like an Eddie Tolan walkway.
All right.
You'll hear something like it'll just be like an Eddie Tolan award or something, or Eddie Tolan was the first person, the first track and field, the first black track and field, athlete to do this. All of a sudden you'll recognize the name. And it'll just this is the guy. This is who we're talking about.
All right,
He's a legend.
We'll do this, and we want to thank everybody who's listening, all the people that listen and watch the videos and listen to the audio podcast where they go up all over the place, YouTube, Facebook, and all the podcast outlets. Thanks for listening, and be sure to follow or subscribe. That helps. But do this for us. Leave a comment if you know of an Eddie Tolan park or walkway or something, or where it is, right?
Yeah.
Or a street or a scholarship or something named for our guy.
You just
Tolan.
see, that's what I'm saying. You just see it pop up like on random things. It
would be cool if people would throw that if you notice something. Come on back to this episode and leave a little comment
and prove me right.
Prove me right. I'm curious and I'm curious to see. Oh my God, I've been by there. It never dawned on me that was that. So I want to see if we can spark any of that. So, thanks for listening and watching. So make sure you follow or like or collect or whatever it is on your particular outlet.
Yeah.
So what's where does this story start?
So Eddie Tolan, so much like Joe Louis, exactly like Joe Louis, he was not born in actually Detroit or Michigan. He was born in Colorado in 1908.
All right.
And so his full name is Thomas Edward Eddie Tolan, Eddie for short. So Thomas Edward Tolan III. And so he's born in 1908 in Colorado. He moves to Detroit his whole family moves to Detroit in 1924 when he's 15 years old.
Okay.
And so they call it like the Great Migration, even though Colorado wasn't really, it was more of a Western, state. But anyways, so when Eddie Tolan when they moved to Detroit, Eddie enrolls at Cass Tech. And so at 16 years old, he's part of it. So it doesn't take long for his athletic prowess to shine.
Right.
But he's 16 years old. He's part of a two-man team, which wins the national interscholastic indoor track meet in Soldier Field in Chicago. So he's only 16 years old. He wins a national.
What year was that?
He's 16 years. He's 1924.
Okay.
Shortly after. So maybe 19. So now it's 1925.
So 1924, he moves to Detroit.
Yes.
25, he wins.
Yeah, right off the bat. He's
nice.
He's
with Cass
16 years old. Yeah. And then over the course of this, and then over the next couple of years, he sets two Michigan state records. One's in the 100-yard dash, and the second is in a 220-yard dash. So the 100-yard dash, he sets the state record at 9.8 seconds.
And this is while he's in high school?
He's in high school. And then
Cass Tech. So Cass Tech's been around for a long time.
Yeah. So we got a picture of Eddie Tolan here.
There in his Cass Tech track uniform.
Track uniform, yeah.
I ran track in high school.
Did you really?
Probably not nowhere near as fast as.
No, you didn't.
Eddie. I did distances.
Did you?
I did the mile, the 2 mile, the 2 mile.
Did you do cross country?
And the high hurdles. Well, cross country is a different season, but yeah, I did cross country too. So
that's right. It's not really part of track.
For track, yeah, cross country is its own sport, different season. So yeah, I ran cross country too, but I did the mile, 2 mile relay, and the high hurdles because I was one of 3 people on our team that could get over it. Yeah, everybody else was afraid to run the high hurdles. I just could. I wasn't super tall in high school. I'm like 6'1", right? I ended up being like 6'1", but in high school I wasn't 6'1" in high school. I was coming out of grade school into high school, I was like the second shortest kid in class. So I was doing the high hurdles in my sophomore year. But I was like, but it was like, because you would, if the other team didn't field anybody for the sport, for the event, you get points for first, second, third. So it's like, we need a third person to run this. They don't have anybody going. We want the points. And I'm like, I could do it.
Yeah.
And so I just did it. And then they just, whenever they needed it, and it was like the distance events were always later. So those hurdle things always came first. So I could do that. And I wasn't worn out because it's, anyway, nothing like Eddie's career though.
No, well, I tried to run a little track, or I think I didn't try to run cross country. We had some elite cross country runners, but I was like, No chance, man. Their
Yeah.
practices were just them running all day. I'm like,
I gotta pull up
man.
a picture of Jamie high school
Yeah, do
track.
it. You should.
I got the flow.
Perfect occasion to do it. We got a couple more episodes after this,
Yeah.
so it's a perfect occasion to do so. But I tried to run track one year just to try to like get in shape for baseball or football or one of the two, and it was like a week of it. I was like, I'm done, man. They just ran all day. And I'm like, no, dude, I'm good with that.
I thought about I took a year off after high school, and then I went to community college. I'm going to Oakland Community, and I'm like, oh, I'll run cross country at Oakland Community. They would run like 15 miles.
That's all you do is run all day.
I was like, it was about 3 days of that. I was like, screw it.
Well, we'd be in football, and I remember the cross country guys running around, and they're just doing laps, and we're just, we're doing whatever we're doing, and all I just see them is just circling. I'm just like, I'm good on that.
Yeah, no, it was, that college cross country was like, forget about it.
Yeah, no, I'm like, all you like, what are we doing for practice?
They accepted me for the team.
Yeah,
but then I started hanging out with rock and roll people. Yeah. I was like, my running days are done.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm running from now is the police.
That's kind of how I was. I was like, I'm good on the running thing. I mean, we used to run hills and stuff like that, but I'm like, I'm not doing just straight running all day.
Less about me, more about Eddie Tolan.
Yeah.
So in 25, he won his first state championship.
National.
Oh, so he went all the way to
National Interscholastic Indoor Track Meet.
Wow.
At Soldier Field, Chicago. He's part of a 2-man team that wins it.
Nice.
And then over the next couple of years, he sets 2 state records: 100-yard dash in 9.8 seconds, 220-yard dash in 21.5 seconds.
Good Lord.
So just the 100 and 9.8. Yeah, you're under 10 seconds for a 100-yard dash. That's speed.
Yeah.
So he sets those 2 records, and then he also plays football.
Okay.
And so there's one of his sort of a great stories in his like recollections. He scored 6 touchdowns in a single game.
Oh wow,
6 touchdowns. And so he this is back in the 20s.
You said from his recollection.
Well, his recollection was they always asked him, what was your greatest thing you ever did? And as we're gonna get, he's got. I mean, I had to write these achievements. I mean, I had to write this stuff down because it's just champion this, champion that.
So the last 2 people, Walter Hagen. We had his book, The Hague.
Yeah.
And then Speedboat Kings, all about Garwood. When you say where were you pulling?
Well, there's a lot of like articles and newspapers.
So when you researched him, where did you find your research on him?
Just in a variety of sources. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that was just straight out of various, there's just like all the other players and stuff. You get a lot of it from the original newspapers, little biography stories and that.
Right.
The idea with the 6 touchdowns is a famous thing. It's not like it's some random recollection. What I was trying to get at though was that they asked him in a recollection about like what was the greatest achievement he ever had, and he always pointed at that he scored 6 touchdowns in a game. He didn't point to any of these other stuff we're going to get in, so he pointed to this. He's like, I scored 6 touchdowns, and it kind of
everybody goes back to their high school football. It's like they're all Al Bundy.
That's what I was going to say. It's like Al Bundy. He's like Eddie. You've been it's like your accomplishments are ridiculous. He's like
his gold medal swinging around his neck.
He's like, what was your best thing you ever did? He's like, I scored 6 touchdowns in a game in a high school
football game.
They're like, oh, okay. So he always pointed. So that's what they say. He pointed at that as like his greatest achievement. So his senior year of high school, 18 years old, he won that same National Interscholastic Indoor Championship again. So they won it twice within a 3-year span. So just coming out of high school, I mean, he's an elite athlete. I mean, there's no doubt, especially track and field, football. And so he graduates from Cass Tech in 1927, and he's recruited by U of M for football.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so he's recruited by U of M because U of M is like just creme de la creme when it comes to football and it comes to athletics, especially at that time too.
Yeah.
So anyways, it was at U of M that he switches from football to track and field full time, but there's a sort of an issue about why he switched from track and field to football. And it's never really been definitively answered. And so we're not really going to be able to answer it today, but I will lay out and this is just off of Wikipedia. I thought they did a really good job summarizing it. Cause I mean, I had, I talked about it a little bit in the book, but It's got a pretty, Wikipedia is good. It's not the greatest source of information, but they do cite the different sources. So it's good it kind of gives you an overall summary.
Springboard.
Yeah. It gives you an overall summary of like the different stuff that's out there, what they're talking about. So I'm just going to read it the sort of thing. So Tolan was recruited by several major universities as a football player, but he chose the University of Michigan. There are differing accounts as to why Tolan never played on the varsity football team at Michigan. According to a published account in the Detroit News in 2002, Tolan joined the freshman football team as a freshman in 1927. At that time, no African-American had played on Michigan's varsity football team since George Jewett in the 1890s. Tolan was initially allowed to play, but on the third day of practice, the freshman football coach told him, "Some of the coaches are disagreeing on your chances. Some of them think you shouldn't be allowed to play football. I'd be tickled to have you, but I'm afraid I'm going to be outvoted." The Detroit News noted that the freshman coach was outvoted. They took away Eddie Tolan's football uniform and handed him a tracksuit in exchange. So other accounts indicate it was an injury that prevented Tolan from playing football in Michigan. An Associated Press story on Tolan in 1958 stated he would have been a football great as a quarterback had a knee injury in his junior year in high school not forced him to channel all his energies to track. In his obituary, the Associated Press reported that the coaches at Michigan talked the pint-sized speedster into going out for track. Tolan was also quoted as saying, "The track team did a lot more traveling then, so I saw the opportunity to travel on a Pullman and see the country." So there's a couple of different, ideas. Was there some like racism involved? Was there some, that's an unanswered question.
Sure.
It's just an unanswered question. So, but anyways, that's why we're in a couple episodes we're going to be talking about Willis Ward, because you can actually see a little bit more of football in that era through his life. He was a phenomenal track and field track and field runner.
Sure.
And but he actually did play football for Michigan, and he played for them in what was it, 32 through 35.
Okay.
So 32, 33, 34, and 35. Played 4 years for Michigan.
Okay.
So that's just a few years after this. So and so that's what I'm saying. We're going to dive into his story a little bit, and I think it helps to clarify a little bit more, but it still doesn't answer this question as to the actual reason, the actual things, the actual reason why he didn't pursue football more. Especially since, because here's the thing, Willis Ward, we're going to talk about him in a couple episodes, and Willis Ward did play track and field and he played football.
Right.
So if Michigan was letting him do it, then, and it was a couple years later after this, and it was a different coach involved. So, like I say, it doesn't completely answer that, but nonetheless, it's worth mentioning just to kind of talk about that. But nonetheless, when he went, so the conversion to track, the two coaches he had were absolute legends.
Okay.
Like they're regarded as two of the best, like prior to before the 1920s, their names were Steve Farrell and Charles B. Hoyt. And I have another little ditty that, really kind of shows how great these guys were. Again, this is from the same little Wikipedia link.
All right.
So at Michigan, Tolan ran track under the mentorship of two of the great sprinters of their generations. Michigan's head coach, Steve Farrell, was considered the greatest professional foot racer this country has ever known in the 1880s and 90s. And Michigan's assistant coach, Charles B. Hoyt, who took over from Farrell in 1930, was rated as America's best sprinter in 1913, but lost his opportunity to compete in the 1916 Olympics due to World War I. Coaches at Michigan weren't, what does it say here? So let me see. Yeah, so I just want to talk about those guys there. Those are the two the superstar coaches at Michigan. That's who he trained under.
All
right. So just like in high school, right? You're just going from year to year, record to record,
right,
accomplishment to accomplishment. So I'm just gonna go right down the list.
Spit it off,
yeah. So 1929, he ties the world record for 100-yard dash at 9.6 seconds. So 1930, he breaks the world record in the 100-yard dash at 9.5 seconds.
Nice.
1931, he sets the world record for the 100-meter at 10.2 seconds. And after this, he's the nickname for his lifelong nickname comes in as the Midnight Express. That's his nickname. So the Midnight Express, Eddie Tolan. Yeah. So and then post 1931, he graduates from U of M. So he's just like, it's just year after year after year, just achievements. And then so the next thing that the next thing he's set up for is the 1932 Olympics. He's
Ooh.
just graduated from U of M.
Nice.
He's heading to the 1932 Olympics. It's the 10th Olympiad, and it's in Los Angeles. And by this point, the Great Depression has set in. So anyways, this is now here's the thing. So the Olympic trials, he goes to are held in Stanford University, the Olympic trials, and he goes out there, he's like, I'm riding high, I'm setting world records, I'm doing this. And he goes out there and he gets beaten in the Olympic trials.
Oh no!
By a guy named Ralph Metcalfe, who you're going to kind of see here. Ralph Metcalfe is one of the greatest sprinters of all time as well. And so Ralph Metcalfe, he's from Marquette. And and so he goes to Marquette University, and Ralph Metcalfe beats Eddie Tolan in the 100 and 200 meter sprints. And so despite that, Eddie Tolan still finishes in the top two. He lost only to Ralph Metcalfe. And so the two of them both go to the Olympics.
Michigan boys.
Yeah, Michigan guys. Yeah.
Yay.
So they go to the Olympics. So Metcalfe and Tolan, it's worth a little bit of a dive here. Metcalfe and Tolan, this is the first time that two African Americans represented USA as the top two sprinters.
Oh, wow.
It's the first time this has happened. And so this is where we kind of come up with the two signature sort of moments of this 1932 Olympics. And this was a huge deal back in its day.
Yeah.
So we've got a video to show that little 1 minute clip.
All right.
And so to set the stage for this, what happens is, so there's two big races that they're running in. It's the 100 meter and the 200 meter.
All right.
And in the 100 meter, this is one of the craziest facts. Are you going to shut that window because it's kind of breezy through the microphone? I think. I don't know if I think that's what it is.
Check on the other.
Oh, there you go. So anyways. This is the
battery a prima donna.
I'm not a prima donna. I don't want our listeners to think that we're filming outside and we're filming out with the breeze rolling through here. So
should we get some green M&Ms for you in a bucket too? I'm busting your chops. Go ahead. All right, so we're setting up this video clip.
Yeah. So this is what's crazy is, both Metcalfe and Tolan they tie. In the 100 meter dash, right? They both cross at 10.3 seconds, right? So those high-tech
timing instruments they had back then, right?
Yeah,
it was like Shaky Joe at the end with the stopwatch.
Yeah, so they both set the world record at the same time.
Oh, nice.
But this is what's crazy is that despite this, Eddie Tolan won the race, despite the fact they both tied and they both set the world record the same exact times. Eddie Tolan still won.
It's because he was taller.
No, it's because as we're gonna see, they both cross. They both touch the tape at the exact same time.
Wow.
But Tolan puffs his chest out when he hits the tape.
Yeah.
And so his chest crosses the line first. So the way that they described the win was both men touched the ribbon. This was the official response. Both men touched ribbon at the same time. Thus, both had set the record. Tolan's torso had crossed first, so he had actually won the race. So his torso crossed the line first,
right?
But they both touched the tape at the same time, and so it's so
the wind might have been blowing just a fraction for him, and
crosses just by hair. So, anyways, if you just go on YouTube, they can do there's so much stuff because back in for this race. In its day was massive.
Okay.
Like I'm telling you, this was the first time they ever used slow motion at least in the Olympics to determine who won a race.
All right.
Because it was so close. And not only did they do that because it was such a big deal that they used video feed, to decide this race, that the moment that they both crossed was like celebrated in like images, illustrations, photos, all kinds of stuff. We've got a couple we'll show after the video.
All right, so this is a minute. This is the 1932 men's 100 final.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Edit that out of the. I'll probably edit that out of the audio podcast because that was just noisy.
It was.
But that's the crowd.
But that video
screaming.
Was amazing. That cut right there was amazing because they showed the way they used the slow motion for it, and you can see Tolan just like leaning forward a little bit with his chest. It just
and did his hand come across first? Did one of his hands come across before his chest? Before the other guys?
They said his torso.
So yeah.
So his chest, he puffs out his chest as he crossed, and that's what these images are going to show.
Right.
You can see how he crosses the line.
All right. So we got 32 Olympics. All right. So here's the images. These two images.
Yeah.
All right, so there's two images here. One seems like kind of late for the photo finish. They're like they've pulled the tape like a good
they're actually
3 feet.
ones they've actually crossed the tape. What the point of these is not necessarily to examine the finish.
Okay,
They're just a couple of the examples
great
of the
shots.
There are a couple of the examples of the illustrations in that were put out and the colorization and stuff that were. I mean, there's so many of these. There's black and white photos. It's this moment that they both crossed, and that's what I'm trying to say is it was celebrated. It was like it was so close to call that it was like it was a huge deal in its day that they'd use slow motion to decide. And so because of that moment, there was all kinds of artwork and photos and everything that were put out as a result. And so this is like one of the first times that it was a big deal. It's like a first time that slow motion is used, and
Chris said it would go viral, and it did in his day with photos and illustrations and just saturated the news for a while. That's amazing. Yeah. And so they both went down as so they go down as a tie as a world record holders, but he went down
they both got the world record, but Eddie Tolan got the gold for this.
Okay.
So he wins his first gold medal in the 1932 Olympics.
I wonder with advanced technology and advanced timing of today, if that would have been,
I mean, to me, it looked
32
like
and 100th and 32 and 200ths and giving it to him that way.
Yeah, but I think they did pretty well with it.
Oh my God, yeah.
But
it's worth it to Google and find it.
If you look up on YouTube, if you look up the 1932 Olympics, Eddie Tolan.
If you're watching,
there's so many videos on it. They have like little mini shows. They have the interviews with Ralph Metcalf years later, and he's like, I won that. There's no way. Like he ended up going into politics and that. And what's crazy is that Ralph Metcalf, like he was an elite runner of his day, and he would end up facing off against Jesse Owens in the 1936 Olympics.
Right.
And he had a race very similar to this where he finished just a shade. Like I think it was, Jesse Owens had a 10-3 and he had a 10-4. Like if he would have run that same 10-3, he would have been the same thing.
Sure.
But he was right there with them with Jesse Owens.
Yeah.
So he finished second again in the 36 Olympics. So he's like, man, this sucks.
Can't win for losing.
Yeah, exactly.
So the 1932 men's 100 final. If you Google that, if you saw it here and we just played it. If you're watching,
but there's a bunch of other stuff where they actually examine it. And they like really there's like deep dives into like this, like there's whole like video stories about, Eddie Tolan's life leading up to it and all this.
And so this was the first video finish
where they use slow motion to capture the results of a race. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. At least in the Olympics. I'm not sure if it was ever, but it was at least in the Olympics.
This was 32.
Yeah.
But the 1935 story and the things that lead to it and the people involved in them, every time I turn around, there's another massive innovation.
That's what I'm saying. Well, this is one of the things that this whole 35 season did for me, for my other research that I do, is this was a foundational age. This was a foundational era for the sports that we know today.
Right.
I mean, in football, this is where the ball size changed. They reduced the size of the ball because the passing game was becoming such a big deal.
Yeah.
And so so the ball actually changed into the size that we recognize it today. And then the rules, passing started open, like everything. Like this is the foundational era of sports. And of course, all the teams were firmly established in Detroit. I mean, the Red Wings had changed their name 3 times until they got to the Red Wings in the 30s. And then everything, the Lions came into Detroit in 34. This is a foundational era. They're using video, slow motion video to determine the race. And to them, just think about that for a second. Like, I mean, talking pictures had only been around, since 1927.
Right. And now they're using video for a photo finish.
Yeah. Now they're
video finish.
Yeah. Think about that. I mean, I think up until like 1915 or 1920, the footage was, really, I mean, they had video, they had movies, but they were not the greatest.
Sure.
They were super high speed, the people look like they're running when they're walking, they're all moving really quick.
Yeah.
And so now you just saw the video for yourself. That looked, it was black and white, but otherwise it looked like it could have been damn near modern day
crisp.
video.
That was
it was
crisp.
sharp, yeah. And so the fact that the judge is like, okay, let's go to the slow motion replay of it. They're like, slow motion replay? We can do that now?
More than just about forgetting the life jackets.
Yeah. So but the fact that they can actually go back and like, well, let's take a look at the tape and see what it says. You know? And so that's like a big deal. They're like, hey, did you know that they use slow motion replay to decide?
Let's go to the tape.
The
and this is where it
Olympics.
started.
Yeah. So anyways, it's a this is a foundational age. So so every time you're right, every time we do turn on, that's how it is. So anyways, so this is like so Eddie Tolan wins that 100 meter gold. And then the next race is a 200 meter, and there's no really deep dive into that because he won this by a way wider margin.
Right.
So Eddie Tolan ran a 21.2 seconds, and then Metcalf ran a 21.6. So there was a little bit larger margin for error. So anyways, Eddie Tolan wins the second gold medal. He wins 2 gold medals in the 1932 Olympics, and Metcalf gets actually bronze in that. Whereas another American, George Simpson, wins silver. And so this little dais right here that we have a picture of Eddie Tolan. This is him for the 100 meter, because in the 100 meter,
Metcalf was in second.
Yeah, Metcalf was in second, and then what's the guy's name?
Arthur Jonath.
Yeah, Arthur Jonath. Yeah, he won the bronze. He's from Germany.
Germany.
Yep. But this is pre-Nazi days. This is still like Weimar
Germany.
Tail end of Weimar Germany. Yep. So
you can pick on Germany.
Yeah,
that's the one country you can still pick.
Yeah, France. You can pick on France.
France too. France. You can take shots at France.
France all you want.
Yeah. China too. Them and the damn balloons.
Yeah, dude. We can sling anything we want at them.
Although they have the capability of shutting us down.
We could shut them down too if we didn't buy all their goods whenever, man. Stop buying Chinese goods.
Yeah. That's true. Right, but this was the 100 meter medal ceremony.
Yeah, that was a 100 meter medal ceremony. Tolan gets the gold. And so anyway, so he wins 2 gold medals in this Olympics, and Eddie Tolan,
but hey, man, it ain't no 6 touchdowns in a high school football game.
Like, that is exactly. He's like, this is great, but I also scored 6 touchdowns.
But, hey, Arthur, I ever tell you, I scored 6 touchdowns in my high school football game.
Arthur's like, yeah, you also got the gold medal too, dude. And he's like, yeah, but that's nothing.
That's a cute little sailor outfit. If anybody's listening to the audio podcast, again, worth a look-see at the video. Arthur's wearing a cute little sailor outfit.
Yeah, I guess
I like that.
Is it? I mean,
Arthur, it's not too flashy.
I think it's cool, but I don't want to say it's cute. But I mean, it's cool. They got a dress code. They got a cool sense of style back then.
I'm just bagging on his. It looks like a little sailor outfit.
I mean, it's his Olympic gear, man.
Hey, sailor.
Eddie, to the USA, they got sweatshirts.
That's it. They got it looks kind of contemporary because it's like
they got the sweatshirts with the USA logo on the front.
I'm looking for the Nike logo on those.
Yeah, track pants.
Yeah.
So and if you ever have a chance to look at the Coliseum that they played in for 32, it's really friggin' cool, man. Yeah. It's like got like kind of Greek architecture. I mean, it is like, of all the Olympic settings I've ever seen, this LA Coliseum that they ran in was like, it is like the ultimate Olympic arena.
Yeah, it's just like
super
a Greek.
Cool. Yeah, 32 Olympics are actually kind of interesting if you dive into it a little deeper. But anyways, so after this 1932 Olympics, I mean, we just kind of whizzed through, ripped through all these different, it's every year of his life. He's
just been
records,
killing
and championships, and yada yada. I mean, it's just every single year. So after the 1932 Olympics, Tolan is called the world's fastest human.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the first black man to ever be called the world's, because that was like an actual designation for somebody that's like that's won so many things. They actually I think it was the Associated Press that put it out. It was like an award called, and so it was the world's. So he's the world's. He's called he wins this award, the world's fastest human.
All right.
And so he arrives in Detroit on September 6, 1932. He's greeted with an official welcoming committee at the Michigan Central Station.
Mm-hmm.
And that day, September 6, 1932, is declared Eddie Tolan Day by the Detroit Mayor Frank Murphy and Michigan Governor Wilbur M. Brucker. It's called Eddie Tolan Day.
Okay.
He's got Eddie Tolan Day. They're in. And I was thinking about this idea, like,
what day is it?
So September 6th, 1932.
September 6th.
We should pretty much
we're gonna put that on the calendar.
Yeah, we should add that to our calendar. Yeah.
Yeah, say happy birthday.
Yeah,
to
we
him.
should.
It's
We
not
should.
his
We should bring
birthday,
these. We should bring these days back.
But
yeah,
people listen whenever. But yeah, it's no. I just
still
for
it's
my edification.
Yeah.
I like to know. All right, so September 6th is Eddie Tolan Day. I'm going to put that in the calendar now. Amazing, just astounding. Just the fastest man alive in 1932.
Yeah, and so, but here's the thing: is just in amongst the little details that that I mentioned right there, the fact that there's this official welcoming committee at the Michigan Central Station, right? And so I just want to spend a second talking about this for a second, because this is a recurring theme in all, like, virtually every single person or athlete or anything that we're talking about that is old Detroit. and I've never seen really anybody talking about this is one of the values of the Michigan Central Station was that it was basically the gateway of people that, like, went out and did something cool. Right. When they came back to Detroit, they would take the train, they would arrive at the Michigan Central Station, and it's the perfect sort of gathering point for these Detroit heroes, legends, stars, whatever. I'm sure it was like this for, explorers or anybody that was like a Detroit hero or somebody that recognized, that you would have these welcoming committees. You would have these welcoming. So, like, the person arrives in the train station, and there's all these people that are going, "Hey, Eddie Tolan's back. This is the official welcome home." It's the Red Wings had it, the Tigers had it, Joe Louis had. They all had this in the Michigan Central Station. I know they're repurposing it, which is good. They're redesigning all this, but the sort of the down, I guess you call it the downfall of the Michigan Central Station, where it's ceased to be used as a train station. That was it's I guess it's not really. I mean, people talk about the Michigan Central Station, how much they miss it and how cool it was, whatever. But one of the things that the city lost when that station sort of became obsolete or ceased to be used was this incredible cultural component for the city. Yeah, which was that. I mean, this is like a ticker tape parade type of situation. Yeah. When people came back to Detroit, especially via, of course, via train, sure, it was the perfect spot for the city to adore you, to gather and meet up,
go down Michigan Avenue.
Yeah, to meet up there. You take your car, you go down Michigan Avenue, but it's the it's just such a. I mean, imagine you're Eddie Tolan getting off the train, and there's this welcoming committee. Yeah, they're like, it's Eddie Tolan Day. You've got all these people that are cheering you. Your families that are waiting for you. It's just it's just something that it just doesn't get talked about. Of, like, one of the things that we lost when it came to Michigan Central. It wasn't just it was, besides the incredible architecture of it. Besides the fact that it's there's an Amtrak station just a few blocks away, in Detroit. I mean, you go up Woodward Avenue, and there's an Amtrak station there, but it's not the Michigan Central. I mean, you go to Amtrak, you take you're going on there to get on a train or whatever. Cool. But it's like the pageantry of the Michigan Central. Yeah. Like, you're arriving through like the gateway into Detroit in this just monolithic, like, massive, cyclopean architecture. Yeah. Where you're just going, you're walking through, and it's just the most magnificent building, and you're coming home, and all these people are there waiting for you. You're getting there, you get to proceed out to the sedans and head out to where you're going. It's like the pageantry of it, you see. And there's the 30s studying this story, this is just one of the sort of components. Like, another thing I think of as similar along these same lines is that it's called the Debutante's Ball. Okay. Which was like it was a total cultural thing in the 30s, 40s, and I think even into the 50s. Where they would have they would announce in a newspaper, like, such and such are having are welcoming their daughter into the world of adulthood. It's like a Sweet 16 party. Yeah, yeah. But they would open up this invite, and all these parents would bring their kids there to this huge party, depending on how much money they had to throw it, and depending on who they wanted to invite. They wouldn't just invite the world every single party, but it was like this cultural thing. It was like this sort of a way for people. It was when I say cultural thing, what I mean is it was a way for the community to bond and, you know, to come together for a reason to come together in a, you know, like a sort of in that sort of pageantry. And so, it's just, there's so many things, like I say, from the 30s that are that have been lost.
Yeah.
That we used to do, that used to lead to a greater sort of, you know, a sense of like a Detroit culture, or a, you know, and I'm not saying it was exclusive to Detroit, but,
but they got that skating rink down there now.
Yeah, well, no, that's cool. I mean, but the things like that are efforts to, you know, to you know, to restore some of that stuff. But that Michigan Central Station, just to, like I mean, pretty much every one of these stories we've talked about, there has been this, you know, moment in these people's lives where they come through the Michigan Central and there's like this adoring throng of people there.
Well, my mom has a story, because they moved from Pennsylvania to Detroit when my mom was, I don't know, she might have been 8 or 10. So she was born in 32. So this is, she was young. And both of my grandparents were straight off the boat from Poland, settled in Pennsylvania. Grandfather was a coal miner. He was done coal mining. They were moving to Hamtramck because that's where Polish people go.
Of course.
But she has this memory that he came here first and was getting set up and getting the job and getting the house, and it was time for my mom and my grandmother to come up, and so they took the train, and my grandmother didn't speak English, right? So my mom at like 9 is like, has to be the, you know,
the interpreter,
and the navigator, you know, and she remembers she was carrying like a portable record player, and there's a suitcase, and getting off the train station and just being awed by the train station there, and then getting a cab and trying to get a cab from the train station to Hamtramck. So anyway,
that was like the gateway in Detroit.
It really was. And
that's so many people. It's one of the things that it's one of the things that is. It's one of the, you know, the loss of the Michigan Central was I think more than just when they look at like, well, we can downsize our train station and just have a little terminus over here. You could just get on the train. You know, it's no big deal. And it's like, well, but the thing is about it, it is a big deal. It's one of these things. It's kind of like another example is Hudson's, you know, the loss of Hudson's was more than just a place to go buy Christmas gifts.
Yeah.
I've seen people that, cause I never saw Hudson's. I'm from Kalamazoo. I don't even think I was even old enough to even go to Hudson's, even if I was from here. But I've seen people that did used to go to Hudson's, and I've talked to people that did used to come downtown, and they were like, they've said like, I wouldn't even live in Detroit, but like, it was our thing. Like I've talked to like, I think my aunts and uncles used to do it. Like their big event of the year, like one of their big events of the year was to go to Detroit to Hudson's for Christmas. To like just go through the store. And then there's an artist. His name is Paul Adams. He's a sort of a legend in Detroit. He's a very famous, you know, relatively famous Detroit illustrator, and he paints a lot of nostalgic images. They're all fantastically talented. He's like wins artist of the show at all these different art shows. But I used to know him. I mean, I still know him, but I used to see him all the time. And he had this illustration of Hudson's, and he had done this Christmas in Hudson's. Yeah. And he was like, I think he was in his 70s, you know, 10 years ago. So but anyways, he did this like illustration of like Hudson's at Christmas, and this picture, like he was like trying to frame one of them, and he botched one or something, and I had just done him a favor, and he was like, hey, you know, hey, do you want this? And he gave it to me. And cool. Like I have it, and it's like, I was like, I can have this. It was the most beautiful picture. And it paints, what's cool about his stuff is that he paints it through a, you know, sort of a rose tinted, you know, like nostalgia lens. Yeah. And you're just looking at it like that, you know, that is freaking cool, man. He's got like this whole Christmas display at Hudson's and everything. And I'm like, that is friggin' cool, man. And so like, again,
the culture that,
so the thing about Hudson's is, again, it's the same thing. It's this sort of, it's this, it's not even about like, well, we can shop at the mall. We get a mall's a better spot. And it's like, but does that have that same sort of cultural, like, you know, bonding component, or is, you know, I mean, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but I mean, it's one of those Detroit things that you just lose the shopping
Sure.
component. It's more, there's something more to it.
I think that's all part of the magic of what 1935 was, that there were all these institutions.
Yes.
And they were in their heyday, in the beginnings of their heydays, there in 35. So we're at 1932. He's getting off the bus. He won these gold medals, and he's just welcomed back to these throngs. And it's an amazing welcome for him, which again, people didn't celebrate African Americans as much.
But I mean, this is the era. It's things are starting to turn,
a little bit.
It's starting to move. So, because you got Eddie Tolan, and then you're going to have Joe Louis a couple of years later. This is because this is 32. This is, September 1932. It's about to be 33. So, and then you're going to have Jesse Owens, and that, like these guys are, Willis Ward's he's going to play, like, he's actually going to be one of, like, U of M. We're going to see in a couple episodes, the U of M is going to have one of the greatest teams ever assembled, and Willis Ward's like one of the best players on it, and he's like, and he's also a track star. He's actually racing against Jesse Owens because Willis Ward's U of M and Jesse Owens is Ohio State. And so that's
Ohio State.
So you're starting to see these things, happen. The world, the country moving towards, change in that. This is kind of where I wanted to finish off with Eddie Tolan. But I did want to sort of say, one thing to kind of like tease the next episode is, as great as all these achievements were that Eddie Tolan's hitting right here, one of the things that he saw when he first got off of the train, coming back, through his welcome, he saw his half brother, collecting, he said, waste paper, which I think is just paper that's just laying on the yard of the Michigan Central Station.
Yeah.
And he looked at his brother, and as great as his achievements were up to this point, Eddie Tolan wanted to be his brother at that moment, because Eddie Tolan was basically broke. And he's not making any money whatsoever doing these things.
Yeah. Okay.
And so
what kind of money is there in track? I mean, even today.
Exactly. And he's like, it was a different thing back then. You didn't have like grants and all these different things. He up to this point, he was doing this for the love of sport purely. And he is living like he's living a life of where he is completely destitute. He has no money.
Wow. Okay.
And so, they say, like, he saw his brother working the most menial job that you can have. And this is in the middle of the Great Depression as well.
Sure.
And he's looking at his brother, and he's like, I'm getting all these awards and all this different stuff, but like, I would trade any of it to be able to collect paper like you off the grounds of the Michigan Central Station.
Wow.
He saw his brother there as basically a kind of a ground.
So we're going to figure out more about his
fiscal
future next episode.
Yes. But the thing is to keep in mind is with this Eddie Tolan is that this idea that he is like broke, he's destitute, he has no money. This is going to factor massively into the next chapter of what we're going to talk about with Eddie Tolan.
Okay.
So, kind of leave people wanting to know more, but so today we laid out this stunning, rise of achievements of this, crescendo in the world's fastest human.
High school paid for, and then college, he was on scholarships for that.
But here's the thing is, but he's not necessarily getting paid money for being that. He's like, they're paying for his trips. Yeah, they're just probably going to get some money, while he's, in the cafeteria.
Now college is over.
And
so what's happening? So he's destitute.
He's probably traveling.
Crazy.
He's probably traveling with the U.S. national team. And so when he's at a place, they're feeding him.
Yeah.
So as long as he's sort of part of the system, as far as these races and that, he's, he can kind of live off of what they give him. But he doesn't have a job. He's not working.
And what happens if you blow out a knee?
They may help him take care of stuff just from the sports doctors they got on staff. So he's like, okay.
Well, no, if your career is over, it's over. When it's over, it's over.
Yeah. But the thing is, as long as he sort of stays within the boundaries of going from tournament to tournament to tournament, for race to race, then he's able to kind of eat in the cafeterias and do these different things.
Yeah.
But he is otherwise destitute. He's got no job. He's got no money. He's got nothing. So that's what he said. He goes, I saw him because up to this point, he's like, well, the next Olympics isn't for 4 more years. What else is there to do? He's he is now at the pinnacle of his profession. And then he's just won the 2 gold medals. But the thing is, back in these days, And it's another thing to keep in mind as we, for the next episode, we're talking about.
It's not total sports where you're doing signings.
You can't make any money off of your sport.
Right.
If you make money off of being a sprinter or a runner, you are not going, then you're banned from any more amateur competition. And they took that back then. They stripped Jim Thorpe of his medals.
Yeah.
Of all his medals from the Olympics. And he won a ton. They stripped Jim Thorpe for playing a baseball game. I think it was for playing a couple baseball, barnstorm games under an assumed name. They stripped him and I don't even think, and that wasn't even what he won the gold medals for.
Right.
Just for taking any money as a professional, they stripped him of his, but they took it very seriously back then.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing, is that all he does is train for these, for athletics. And he's not allowed to make any money off of it.
All right, we'll see where it goes next.
Yeah. So that's where we're going. That's kind of like a lead up to the next episode.
All right. So subscribe, leave a comment. The website is DetroitCityOfChampions.com. You can get the books there and lots of other stuff. There's t-shirts and sweatshirts and hoodies there. There's t-shirts and sweatshirts and the cool t-shirts, the cooler t-shirts are on wearingfunny.com.
Yeah, stop in at 12 Oaks Mall or Partridge Creek Mall. I'm there. I'm at one of those two malls pretty much every day. Stop in and say what's up. Talk some City of Champions stuff.
But subscribe, leave a comment, and we'll do more again very, very soon. Thanks for being with us.